Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. That is me. And I talk to founders of really cool brands that I follow on the internet, and I get to ask them behind the scenes of how they're building their brand. Today, I have the two co founders, Maddy and Taylor of Anytime, which is a really cool brand that I've been following online. They seem to have a really cool take on beverages, spirits, and what they're doing differently. I've been nerding out, learning about their brand, and today Maddy and Taylor are going to take us behind the scenes. So, Maddy, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us. We're happy to be
You're
here.
so welcome. So, to kick things off, like I said, I love learning the behind the scenes of a brand. I love hearing about the story. So, Maddie, can you kick us off of what's the story behind Anytime?
Yeah, so Taylor and I have been best friends for almost 15 years. We met my first day of college. Taylor was actually my TA in Intro to Environmental Studies, which just sort of is telling of where we've landed and ended up. But we started in school together at Brown University running a CSA. So really focused around vegetables and working with farmers and trying to figure out how do we take this agricultural food system and actually use it to fight climate change. Our generation is so of the belief that like climate change is sort of the frontier challenge of our generation, and yet solutions are hard to come by. And so we just immersed ourselves in the food world. We've both worked at some of the sort of fastest growing and biggest, most amazing farm to table institutions, restaurants, retail. I was at Fresh Direct and Imperfect Foods and Misfits Market, leading sustainability and procurement for them around fruits and vegetables. And Taylor was at restaurant groups like Dig Restaurant Group, Daily Harvest, Chipotle, Every Table, some of these amazing spaces that worked on direct farmer supply chains. And so we were really trying to find ways to take farmers and the agricultural system and put that at the center of the food space, and find ways that customers could actually engage in eating, drinking, and sort of savoring food and support those farm systems that really help fight climate change. And when we got into the alcohol world, we realized as drinkers, like naively, we couldn't figure out what was in our alcohol. We didn't know. In wine, we knew it was coming from grapes. We could understand varietals. When we got into the spirits world, this black box just became so clear. And we were digging in and we were just embarrassed. We're like, we know what's in every aisle of every grocery store. We know what's in most food. That's being served across the country, and we just couldn't figure it out. And so we naively dug into this world and started building Anytime to build the transparent, organic, and regenerative alcohol brand that we were looking for.
That's really interesting how you went from agriculture, CSA to spirits. What were some of the things that right off the bat you're like, ooh, we need to create a solution around this?
Yeah,
Just
I
finding out
mean,
what's in it?
totally. And right now, just 1% of all alcohol sold in the US is certified organic. Compared to every other part of the grocery store, be it produce, be it your pasta, be it the frozen aisle, those are growing double digit year over year. And alcohol is really that category that's been left behind. And so our purpose really emerged from solving that, saying, what if we can make that 1%, 2%, 3% and grow it year over year and really be the brand and the voice for sort of a new generation of drinkers? Um, Even beyond that, just 1% of all US farmland is certified organic. So when we really double down, we can be a brand that grows certified regenerative and organic grains on US farmland, convert more acres to those practices, then increase the availability of certified regenerative or organic spirits. We're solving for farmland use and we're solving for better, frankly, better consumption. Um, I think the other sort of like really unique part about our brand is um, we're not a broy sort of like overindulgence. We're not here to in so much of alcohol, right? To get drunk or sort of to have that ethos. We're really about delight, low ABV, like our canned cocktails. We're about, balancing a lifestyle that's really meant for enjoying things and also being a brand that focuses on flavor, agricultural practices, right? And sort of not that traditional sort of intense alcohol consumption that sort of is so prevalent with brands.
That was an interesting aspect of your brand also, the lower alcohol levels. I think that's also the trend of especially Gen Z not drinking as much or wanting lower alcohol options, which I think is a great trend to go
Yeah.
into this space. I'm curious too, when you start talking about regenerative agriculture, it's becoming more common. I think it's more on people's radar. It's definitely a space in CPG that people are trying to tap more into or explain of how that is incorporated in their products. Um, I would love to hear how you all have been explaining that to someone who maybe isn't necessarily as savvy or hip to like what is regenerative farming or practices. How do you all explain that from this perspective of any time?
Yeah. So basic agricultural systems, right? We have conventional, which sort of is the dominant sort of practice in the United States, right? That could mean heavy use of synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, right? When we see some of those like terrifying documentaries on Netflix, right? Or read those articles that are sort of the shock factor, that's often talking about the conventional system, be it across
Mm,
plants, fruits and vegetables, or meats and dairy. You sort of move along, right? And you have a lot of sort of more sustainable practices, with one of the sort of oldest and best being certified organic, right? So the modern consumer is relatively aware of the decades of USDA certified organic, and those baselines have been vetted, tested, right? And sort of certified through third parties to allow that to have that seal on a package. Baseline there is really around no synthetic pesticides, no synthetic fertilizers, thinking about sort of, how much you're growing in crop rotations, water use, no GMOs, right? Like that's sort of baseline organic. But then you go a step further and you say, what if sort of we took all that organic baseline and we said, what if we also focused on animal welfare, people safety, and people wages? And most importantly, what if we focused on how healthy the soil is, right? So using metrics like biodiversity of soil, you know, uh, life, how many unique microorganisms are in the soil, how much water can that soil hold, how healthy is that soil so that it can hold carbon, right, as plants pull carbon out of the atmosphere and put it into the soil. The regenerative organic framework we use, which you sort of will begin to see on our Anytime Farmhouse products, that is sort of the gold standard for farm practices because it focuses on the full farm ecosystem: people, animals, and soil. And so when we talk about regenerative and what it means to Anytime, it's really about what can we do to have agriculture be a solution to fight climate change, right? Versus furthering the impacts through really unhealthy agricultural practices that are paramount in the conventional strategy. All to be said, as a consumer, like if one of your favorite products is talking about regenerative, go find out what they're talking about when sort of they use those claims, right? We have a certified product, which is different than some other folks. All to be said, regenerative agriculture is super important for the longevity of our planet. And so we're big proponents and we want to see more products out there. But super important to make sure that you as a consumer are making sure that sort of brand is really doing what they say.
absolutely. And thank you for explaining that because it's becoming one of those hot keywords, buzzwords. And so I really appreciate you breaking that down because it totally makes sense. And I think to someone who's heard it in their periphery, they're like, okay, I get it now. This is like taking just organic or fair trade, those terms that were pretty now normalized and people look for, and just taking it that next step further of looking at the whole
Exactly.
picture. When it came to your brand strategy and launching the product, creating the product, What has been part of your process or approach of explaining all of that? Like, this is going to help all the things and all the planet, the people, the animals into like a cool spirit that like someone just sees it on the shelf. They're like, yep, add it to the cart. I would love to hear a little bit because I know so many founders get caught in that loop of like, but wait, it also does this. You know what I mean? I would love to hear how, like, Anytime breaks that down or maybe some different approaches and strategies you all have been using, for your brand.
Yeah, I'll start and Taylor will jump in at any point. But I think you sort of heard our ethos and like why we started this. And like from the beginning, we were like, we're going to build the regenerative organic alcohol brand of the future. Like we are going to build products that come from grains we know, farmers we love, and like build the entire supply chain from the bottom up. And like that's how we're super different. Like we didn't start with, oh, there's this white space. Like we were like, how can we help these farms? And then we like found the niche and way that we could change the white space. So we like went farm forward as opposed to like consumer backwards. Of course, we made sure they both aligned, but like
Right.
that was sort of our beginning. And I think when we started this, we really started thinking about like, what is the market we are building and how do we reach those customers? Like, one of the things that's really different being in the alcohol space versus just the food space that we came from is consumers don't really want to buy D2C. We offer it for those like super lovers, but we really try to meet consumers where they're shopping for alcohol, which is when they're buying their groceries, like you buy dinner and then you go buy your alcohol for dinner, or you're going to a party, you're at your neighborhood liquor store, you're at your sort of corner store, you're at your favorite bar or restaurant. And so, like, we really focus on these in person moments of educating customers, answering their questions, and letting them taste product. And there is where we started the like, okay, why aren't you drinking organic? And people like the
Mhm.
light bulb goes off. They're like, oh, yeah, like, why isn't my cocktail organic? And so, just starting of like, we have this crazy nuance and all of these rabbit holes we could go down, but like, where are we going to meet customers? And then just start with like, why isn't your cocktail organic? And we have this offering. That was like the very simple part for us. And then we added all these other pieces of like, we're super transparent, right? Like our first product line was Anytime Spritz, these farm to can cocktails. We list every ingredient on them and you'd have everything in your kitchen. We don't use any natural flavors, no artificial flavors, no chemicals. Everything is something you'd have in your kitchen. And if you turn that can over, you can see that. And so we like allow these little nuances and buttons in to allow customers to like educate themselves. We call it a farm to can cocktail because we've been trying to build this farm to table, can, bottle movement of like farm fresh ingredients right here for you. And then when we launched Anytime Farmhouse Spirits, which is our regenerative organic vodka and gin line, that was where we really started thinking about like, how does this look on a bar cart? This
Mm.
is a very different experience than just drinking a 5% canned cocktail that's consumed in one moment. A bottle you want to keep on your cart or on a restaurant bar for a minute. And that for us was really about building something beautiful, building something really simple and chic, where if you're shopping based on packaging, which, as millennials and Gen Zers, like
Yeah.
we all do it.
Both
We
my
all
hands
judge
are
it.
raised. Yep.
We wanted something that looked really simple and chic and beautiful and elevated, but also approachable. And so we really invested in these beautiful black and white labels that look like a wheat poster. It has the farm house on the center and the wheat in the center to really put the agriculture at the center of the beverage. But building these different ways of like that on our website, you can dig into so much more about the regenerative organic agricultural practices. You can dig into so much more about like who our farm is and where we come from, but also something simple, not over the top, not too much information. And as you sort of get grabbed in, then you can go down each rabbit hole.
That's an
And
interesting approach of starting with the farm on the label in the center and keeping it simple and letting people dive deeper. Um, Taylor, what were you going to add to that?
just that, the other key part is just accessibility. So we want to be a
Mm.
mass appeal brand. We want to feel like a little bit like everyday elevated luxury, but not inaccessible in either visual or price point. And so that's really, I think, part of what makes our brand so special is we can nail that like, hey, we're cool, but we're not too cool. And I say that as like sort of like a pride moment, right? In that we really want to be a legacy long-term brand versus something that feels, we've all seen it. It might be gone tomorrow.
Like
And
super
so
hyper trendy
hyper
that
trendy.
probably
Exactly.
will look out of style by next year,
Yeah.
right?
We always joke when we're doing sort of packaging R&D, like, could we pick this up and could our parents pick this up? Like, is it too
Hmm.
cool where like someone in their 60s or 70s, would they actually reach for it? Or does it feel like they don't know what it is? And so that sort of is part of our test of like, will this stand the test of time?
That's really interesting. I just had a brand strategy meeting with a client and we were literally talking about what is that line between being cool and being timeless and how to gauge that. And we were looking at different mood boards and I met with their design team and literally we were talking about that of like that it's a fine line, but
Yeah.
if you really want a timeless feel to your brand, there needs to be certain elements, but also to make sure your brand feels relevant and modern and fresh, right? So that I'm really glad that you just touched upon that because that has been on the forefront of my mind very recently. What else has been the strategy? It sounds like activations, tastings, really simplifying the message to get someone in. Anything else as far as how you're approaching restaurants or liquor stores or any other places where you said like where people are buying alcohol in the grocery stores? I would love to hear a little bit more of just how you all have been building on that.
Yeah, with restaurants, it's been really fun because our target has been around some of the leading farm to table restaurants in New York and California. And so their kitchens are cranking, crushing, right? They're at the farmers market, they have direct relationships with farms. They're calling out farm names and practices, right? On their sort of menus. In the same way, some of those restaurants, you look at their wine list and they have icons for female suppliers or they have
Hmm.
icons for certified, organic or biodynamic. And so that's been our easiest entry point where we say, hey, your restaurant is 90% there. The one area where we know there's a hole is just your spirits portfolio. And because we are the only regenerative organic certified spirits, we can really talk to them about, those spirits and say, let's add this, let's give it a try, let's call it out on the menu so that we can really draw attention to our practices and our certifications, right? And have your customer really sort of be able to see that everything you offer has that same values and ethos.
So that was also a really interesting thing that you just said, and I don't know if we've touched upon that yet. So your Anytime is the only certified regenerative spirits brand?
Yeah, we're Anytime is the only
Wow.
regenerative organic certified spirit. So we carry both a organic certification and a regenerative organic certification.
That is really interesting. So when
Yeah.
you go and approach them, be like, you have the produce, you have the wine,
Yeah.
you probably have an organic soda option, or right? But you don't,
Totally.
your spirits aren't there yet. And you
Yeah.
all that I mean, that's a huge differentiator right now. That you're first to market with both those certifications. I'm sure that really has surprised a lot of people of like, oh, is it that they just didn't have the option before or didn't really think about it or didn't maybe pay that much
Yeah.
attention to it? Yeah, what's
It's
been the feedback?
both and, right? Like, it's a little
Okay.
chicken or the egg. Like,
Yeah,
there are no options. And so no one's asking for it. And
fair.
so for
Yep.
us to be like, this is the only option and this is the first option, you should be supporting it. It's really like shape shifting a lot of these bar managers and beverage directors' minds because sometimes it might be a different person that's been working, in the kitchen that's been working behind the bar. And so it's like once the light bulb clicks and they're like, oh, yeah, like we've been doing all of this work behind the kitchen and with our consumers. And now, wait, you're telling me I can offer an organic martini? I can offer a regenerative organic. Like, it really lights up their world. And so we're hopeful that we're not the only ones. We're definitely first to market, and there doesn't seem to be folks rushing behind us, but we're really hopeful that this is the beginning of the wave of a whole new way of thinking about beverage because there's been this awkward divide when you open a menu between
Mm,
like all of your farms listed on your meal and then, great identification around wine, but there's not identification around your cocktails and your spirits. And it's so obvious to us that that's your whole portfolio, that's your whole restaurant experience, your whole bar
Right.
experience. But we should really be thinking and caring about what we're drinking in the same way we care about what we're eating.
I find this really interesting. My background, I was head of brand and a partner of a restaurant that was it was plant-based, very community-based and all these things. And we did have a local supplier of some spirits, but the conversation of regenerative, organic wasn't even on our periphery because there wasn't really any option. So, wow. I'm kind of
Yeah. So
blown away that this is the first one. That I didn't realize that. That is really cool. And
yeah, so
okay, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, if you're in New York, like Blue Hill is one of the
Okay,
restaurants that now
that was
carries
my
that.
next
Yeah.
question. Because I'm in New York City. So Blue Hill, I've been there before. Next time I go, I need to order a cocktail. I'm pretty sure I had the wine, I had like the chef's tasting. So I
Yeah.
need to order a cocktail at Blue Hill. Where else can I go?
Just name a couple in New York. You have Arden, which is an amazing restaurant in Prospect Heights. You have Weather Up, a cocktail bar. You have Cafe Spaghetti in Carroll Gardens.
Ooh.
Just like handful of amazing neighborhood restaurants.
Okay. Are these all on
And
your
then
website?
Yes, we have a stockist on our website that's up to date.
Perfect.
Yeah, so in New York, we're in a bunch of places. In California, we're in a bunch of places. And then if you're in other states, we ship. So we can ship to you. But we're in restaurants, bars, and retail in California, New York, and New Jersey.
Okay, I'm going to link the list in the show
Yeah,
notes. And I'm
great.
also going to send that list to my girlfriend. Be like, here's date night suggestions. Let's just go through this list because it sounds like all the stuff totally up our alley. So, like, this is perfect. Okay, I'm really excited on a personal note for that list. I would love to hear what is the vision of Anytime? I know we touched upon it, but maybe just from a brand's perspective or you two personally, where you would love to see yourselves as co-founders. I love hearing people's big dreams and visions. So walk me through it. Bring me behind the scenes of that part.
Taylor, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. We're in this to transform agriculture, right? And to really bring farmers and agriculture solutions front and center to the climate crisis. Um, Growing food in a way that is regenerative organic can help mitigate climate change. And so that's our vision, right? To begin to put together brands and products where consumers can frankly trust us as a brand, right? And feel really authentic that everything we do and we provide is something that for them makes it feel like they're making a little bit of an impact. Um, we have so many acres to grow regenerative organic grain on, and that is just, I think, the most exciting part, where we're talking to farmers and they're realizing, okay, if we onboard you, we can start to make more money on these products, we can have more outlets to sell these, right? All of a sudden you walk in your grocery store, your liquor store, and there's many products that have those certifications. You begin to get shelf talkers, right? But the customer can walk in, just like seems like 5 years ago no one was talking about natural wine, can walk in
Right.
and say, where are your organic spirits? um, so that's sort of like personally me, I'm like, let's transform some agricultural land, right? Because there's so many spirits out there that are not doing what we do. um, and then I think last is just like, you know, lifting up women and queer people in this industry. We partner with other women owned alcohol brands. It is a broy culture. And there's just so much where if we can build those circles, those networks, that's what we're excited about. We're rising tides, folks, and we mean it pretty authentically through and through. And so, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. I think Maddie, I don't know where she went, but
Yeah.
this was an awesome, awesome conversation. I appreciate you both for coming on. Last question, where can people shop? So it's on the website, California, New York,
Yep.
and then online.
California and New York in person. Our stockist online has all of our locations you could need, be it restaurants, retail, etc. And then online, we ship to 35 states. So if you are not in California or New York, you can get it delivered to your door and enjoy some cocktails with your friends.
Incredible. So, Maddy, one last thing. I would love to just hear your vision. We got the rundown
Yeah.
from Taylor and where people could shop, but before you go, I would just love to hear what your vision is.
I mean, of course, it's the same, right? Like we're
Yeah.
building this business together, and so much of it is around how do we change soil health? Like that is sort of our personal thesis, and build a market that enables consumers to shop into that. I think that, we started this business as Anytime Spritz. Like we started with a farm to can cocktail line. We've launched Anytime Farmhouse Spirits now. And sort of the product line innovation, like the world's our oyster. We always start with like, how do we change soil health and what do farmers need? And how do we build markets for that? But I kind of see us having a portfolio of products that's super differentiated, super different, always flavor forward, always taste forward, but like we're starting in alcohol. We could go to food. We could go in different directions. We could go into home. Like anything is possible as long as it does two things, which is builds healthy soil and helps farmers and does something really different for the consumer. We're not here to like reinvent a whole new category of anything. We're trying to take sort of American classic categories and make them better. The vodka's been on the shelves for a long time, but none of it was something that I would be proud to drink. None of it was delicious. None of it was flavor forward. None of it, like, I was a gin person. Like, I just didn't actually enjoy this, but we've built something completely different that someone emailed us this morning and was like, it gave me goosebumps. It was the best vodka I've ever had. And I'm like,
Ooh,
that's what we want to keep doing
love
across
that.
food and beverage. So I see us sort of continually innovating product spaces, but always to build healthy soil. So world's our oyster, and it's not really a great question or not a great answer, but it sort
No,
of
that's a
says that we might go beyond alcohol.
perfect answer. And I feel like that also, and advice that you would give to a fellow founder who's in the beginning stages, I think what you just touched upon as far as what you're really wanting to go for,
Yeah.
what you just said, like soil health, and then how do you create a product that is different and
Yeah.
really building a market and a brand around that. So that was a perfect answer. Perfect answer. So, thank you both again for coming on the podcast. This was such a great conversation. I could talk to you both for hours. I am personally so excited to go and, have some cocktails at all the places where you're in New York City. And I just appreciate you both for sharing your story.
Kelly,
Thanks
thank you
for
so
having
much.
us.
You're so
So
welcome. Thank
fun.
you, everyone, for listening. And I'll see you next week on Emerging Brands Podcast.